Welcome to the latest episode of 305 Vox Populi here in the studio at St. Thomas University. And with us today, we have Coach Dylan Estock. How you doing, Dylan?
I'm doing great, and it's a pleasure to be on the show.
Appreciate you coming on. So you just won a state championship. I mean, Class 4A state champion here in the state of Florida. First year as a head coach?
First year.
Man, so how does that feel? How does that journey feel? Like today, just sitting back when folks see you, they're like, man, you're a state champion. A lot of folks get there. Look, Coach Larinaga in Miami has been to 2 Final Fours. There's a bunch of people that almost get there. But getting past that hump, how does it feel today?
That's a question I still have trouble answering because it's not a feeling like you can compare it to anything else. So, just being an athlete, growing up as an athlete, being in the coaching community, it's something that you always think about. But then when it comes to reality, it's like it's unfathomable. It's almost surreal. It's almost unrealistic because you put so much time, effort, everything into something, and you always try to see the light at the end of the tunnel. But then once you actually go through it, it's a crazy feeling, and it's something that it was a pleasure to do with the whole entire school in general, the athletic staff, the admin, everybody that was involved with that team. I mean, there were so many people behind it that it wasn't just me. It took a lot of people to get there. So when it actually happened and when that clock hit 0-0-0 in that state championship game, it was emotions through the roof that you can't even. It's so hard to explain. You know, when they say things like, You can't even explain it. It's unexplainable. That is that feeling. It is that feeling.
That's phenomenal. How old are you?
I'm 25.
Man, so at 25, winning a state champion. But I've seen some of your interviews, and for being 25, you're extremely poised, very thoughtful in your thought process. So why did you get into coaching, and how have you modeled your coaching style, where I see how in-depth you get in terms of your individual players, but understanding the entire game and just getting deep into that game plan? Because there's 1,000 people out there that could put a good team together and maybe win a state champion, maybe do that. But I've seen those interviews, and at 25, man, I gotta say I'm very impressed with your thought process. But why did you choose to go in the coaching route, and why did you choose, or why is that your style today?
Okay. So the reason why I got into coaching, I grew up basketball. I was never a dual sport athlete. I never played any other sport growing up. I didn't start off with soccer, which is now like the trend nowadays. Yep. It's one of the easier sports to play when you're a young child. I was always basketball. But genetics alone, I wasn't the tallest, the fastest, the strongest, the quickest. The one thing I did have over a lot of people when I played was IQ. IQ, understanding the game, understanding the concept, the philosophy, and the way the game, there's no right or wrong way to play, but the way that I thought the game should be played. So that was something that I always did, even when I played, and when my reality hit and I knew I wasn't going to go to the NBA or be a big-time college player, I wanted to get into coaching. It was something that I just never wanted to get away from the game of basketball. It dominated my life for such a long period of time, so it was something that I was never going to get away from. So actually, when I graduated high school, I started off coaching at 18. At Florida Christian High School, I was under Jason Doan. He's actually over in Texas now, coaching at Duncanville, which is a big-time school over there. And just being under him and learning a lot there was big time for me in my development, and still a lot of the things that I do today. A lot of credit goes to him. But that was kind of how I got into coaching, because I knew I wasn't going to be the best player. So I never wanted to get out of basketball. So coaching was the route. And, that kind of brings us here today. But being poised and something like that, something that I always believe in, and it's a motto that we preach to our guys is, failure to prepare is preparing to fail. And so I think, if you're always prepared to do something, when the moment comes, you're still going to have nerves. You're still going to be a little off, centered and stuff like that. But being prepared is going to give you the best opportunity and the best success to win a game, to be ready for an interview, to do anything like that. So I just make sure that whenever we're about to do something, whether it's a basketball game, whether it's an interview, whether it's a practice, whatever we do, we prepare. And we prepare very, very, very hard at Matter Lakes Academy with our boys basketball team for anything, whatever it is. So I think that obviously helps in all aspects of what comes with coaching, playing. We preach it to our players. Like, it's the same thing. If you're gonna go play a big time game, you got to prepare the night before. You got to prepare days before, whether it's a practice plan, a meal plan, how you're gonna sleep. All those things really take into account. And I think if you do all those things, you still might not win, but it gives you the best chance to win. And if we do those a lot of times, it just becomes a habit.
Man, and what I really enjoyed right before the show was just talking to you about your seniors.
Yeah.
And you have 2 seniors, right?
Correct.
That are graduating, and how you're working on ensuring one of them already signed, right?
Yes.
With Barry University.
Michael Bradley.
That's huge, man. Full ride. That is amazing. And now you're working to ensure that your other senior signs a scholarship as well. So I think, how important is it to you as a coach, not only to win a state champion on the high school, but to ensure that those kids get those scholarships and do well going forward in the future?
I think that's what it's about. So winning a state championship is icing on the cake, and it's a dream come true for me, for the school, for everybody that's involved. But I think ultimately, man, if you're in this game, especially at the high school level, your goal is to get these kids into college. They do so much for you on a daily basis. That's kind of how you can repay them, is helping them with your connections, with your experience, with your knowledge, to get these guys into school. Because at the end of the day, yeah, you're coaching the game of basketball, but you're really grooming these guys in life. So to get Michael Bradley to go play at Barry, he was very big into staying home. He's a Miami kid through and through, so he really wanted to stay in Miami, and Barry gives him that opportunity. So that was a great look for him. He was a captain of our team, so we're going to miss that one very, very much. I think the school is going to miss him. He was a great kid on and off the court. Gabriel Fajardo is our other senior. Right now he has heavy interest from Eastern Florida. That would be a great school for him, a great opportunity to go up there and play another kid that wants to stay down here in South Florida. So that would be a great opportunity for him. And those were the only 2 guys that I graduate this year. We had a very, very young team, and those 2 actually played a big role on and off the court. More off the court than what people would imagine. They were big-time captains for us, leaders, always gave these young guys advice. And what's crazy is during our run, Michael Bradley, we had a 12-man roster. Michael Bradley was the only kid on our team to ever be to a state championship game. He went to a state championship under Eric Rodriguez in 2021 at Matter Academy. So that role alone that he played in those 4 days that we were up there was huge to me. It was my first time being up there as a coach. I've been as a fan, I've been as a spectator, but being a coach and understanding how everything works around there, it's a game within a game. And Michael Bradley was huge in that role for being up there. So we're going to miss that one very dearly. And same thing with Gabriel.
So seeing the Mountaintop, how's the road to get back up there? I mean, what's the work now? So folks understand that the work, I'm sure, already started, right? Because it's not only from the day after, right? You have to start planning. So what's the road look like to get back to that Mountaintop and win back-to-back state championships?
I think it's harder. The reason why I think it's harder is complacency is a real thing, especially with kids that are 16, 17, 18 years old. So understanding that you have to do it again, what it takes. People still might know what it takes and choose not to do it. That happens all the time in life. So now trying to get 12 people to be on the same page, to do that again, going throughout the season this year was definitely hard. We faced a lot of adversity, but something that I could always rely on as a coach was to tell these kids, you guys have never won before. You guys have never won a state championship before. That would always light something within them. Always. I don't have that one. I don't have that one anymore to really use. So now I just got to be, well, you guys have never won back-to-back before. But I think it's going to be a little bit tougher. And I think now we have a little bit of a target on our back throughout the city. This year was kind of my first year as a coach. A lot of these guys haven't really succeeded like that in their basketball careers, wherever they came from. Whether it was a transfer in from another school, whether it was a Matter Lakes kid. So we had a lot of kids with chips on their shoulders. Where this year it's going to be defending that. So it's a completely different mentality and a completely different way that we have to go about things. But it's going to be fun, and it's going to be enjoyment for these kids to do it a different way. And I think that's ultimately kind of how we have to go about these things is we're going to do things a little bit differently this year. Most people will say, oh, don't change anything. But at the end of the day, people adapt, right? So we have to adapt to their adaptation of us. So if they're going to adjust to us, we have to adjust to their adjustment. And I think that's going to be ultimately what the game plan is going forward for everything throughout this season. We have some new kids that are coming in, so they got to get, orchestrated and acclimated to what the things that we do. So I think it's going to be different. It might be a little bit more tougher, but I mean, these kids, I'm blessed to be out of school that there's a lot of people on board. There's a lot from the administration to athletics, to Luis Perez, to everybody that helps out with that boys basketball team. It really, really, really takes a village to win a state championship, and that's something that we learned this year. So I think going into next year is that again. It's really everybody has to be on board, because you can't do it by yourself. There's just no way. You need everybody on board to help out, and everybody has to see the same goal. From the team and from people that aren't on the team. You know what I mean?
No, you got that right. And the NCAA tournament just finished, and immediately you saw dozens and dozens. There's going to be hundreds of kids jump into the transfer portal. And we're seeing it in high school. I was at a high school yesterday, and they were telling me that right after the football season, they had half their team transfer out. How has that changed, the face of basketball, how hard it is? How hard is that for a coach when you're planning a season, you're planning stuff, to understand that? Like, now the FHSA allows kids literally after one season to transfer, and you move schools, and I know there's a rule, as long as you don't
can play
practice with
4
the team.
Different sports at 4 different schools in the same year. It's crazy.
Exactly. And that is happening every day. So how has that changed? The way that you coach, the way that you create a culture where kids feel that, hey, it's a good fit. Forget about sports, but academically for them, and just overall building character in that school setting.
Yeah, I mean, it's changed the landscape of every sport, high school, college, professional. It changes the landscape of everything. So you do have to adapt. To answer the question about how I coach, it would never change the way I coach, because I believe in what I believe in. And if we bring in a kid in, or if a kid's in there for the first year, we're going to coach how we coach. And if the kid decides to leave, that's his choice. But at the end of the day, I mean, you got to stand and be firm in the things that you believe in. At our program, I could speak about us. I can't really speak about other programs, but the things that we do are extremely hard. We really do challenge kids to a breaking point. They might break. I mean, that's the nature of the game. Parents might break. And I think at the end of the day, that's almost what it boils down to is, kids, parents, and coaches have to be on the same page. And I think more now than ever, they're not. They're just not. There's self of entitlement being involved big time now in high school sports. I think social media is great and it's done wonders, but on the flip side of it too, there's times where kids start to really, really buy into that and kind of stray away from the work that's being, not being seen in closed doors. And that's something that people have to understand, that a kid can come to your program and within 2 to 3 weeks not like it and transfer out. So you have to understand that as a coach, and I think it is part of the game. Massachusetts just lost, they had one of their biggest recruiting classes of all time with their freshmen, and 5 out of their freshmen, four just left. So it's understanding the landscape and understanding that this can happen to anybody. It can happen to me. I returned 9 guys. Wow. We just started practice last week. I might have 6 in a month from now. It's just, just being on the same page. I think biggest thing with us, and that's something that we take pride in, is communication. You know what I mean? Because, we try to do as much team bonding, as much, family experiences, my staff going to dinner with the parents and stuff like that. Just always being on the same page, always understanding what your goals are, what our goals are. Because it's okay to have individual goals. But let's try to make sure that our individual goals are kind of similar to what our team goals are. That way we can always be on the same page. We can always bounce back and forth in between each one. And my job is to help you achieve your individual goals and vice versa. And I think if you can get on the page like that with everybody, success, that's when
you win a state championship.
Yeah, you win a state championship. And that's something I can say this year. I mean, within our program, we had 0 headaches. 0.
That's awesome.
I think every single parent Loved it. Obviously, we won a state championship, but throughout the season, I mean, we didn't have to deal with anything like that. And I know that's rare. And from everybody that's been telling me, all my mentors and stuff like that, they say that's not the case. So get ready for it, going forward. Now that you've won, you're going to have those discussions, and there's going to be those things. And I think, again, going back to what I said about 15, 20 minutes ago, it's, if you can have the right preparation, you'll be ready for everything that you can kind of take on. You know what I mean?
You got that right. So 2 things that we do different in the show. Got the students that are going to ask you some questions. You'll have an opportunity to ask me any questions you got. But we're going to hand it over to the voice of the Bears, who's I know has been with you guys. Big believer. This guy. This guy, Lou Perez, would constantly text me, let me know. He's like, yo, you got to watch this regional final. They're in the state. He was so excited and so proud of the work that you all did.
Absolutely.
So I want to hand it off to him because I'm sure he has some phenomenal questions.
I'm gonna lead off and then the students will go. I have a personal question for you, Dylan. In any job, your first year is like an evaluation. You evaluate what you've done, what you liked about yourself, what you didn't like about yourself, about what you ran stuff. But you have a championship to show for it. So I guess at the end of the day, it is success. However, though, what is some of the things that you learned about yourself in what arguably is probably the biggest role you've had so far in your young career?
Yeah. So one thing that I think I learned this year that I'm gonna do differently next year is this year I was just 100% 24/7 basketball. And one thing that I did learn is you do burn out. You will burn out. So I think one thing, to answer Lewis's question, is one thing for sure that I think is going to be extremely important next year is me, my staff, my kids. We need to find slots that you get away from the game a little bit. You know what I mean? And go do something as a team, whether it's the beach, whether it's the movies, whether it's something. Go do something that is not heavily involved with basketball. Because if that's all you do and if that's everything is basketball, you're going to burn out. And that's something that I'm actually looking forward to, and I'm excited to do that with these guys. And we've already talked about it. We started practice 2 weeks ago, or not practice, workouts. And that's something that we talked about is kind of communicating with each other, finding days and time slots that we want to go do something as a team, and finding that little niche that we can get away from the game a little bit and then come back. Because I think if you refresh your mind, that's in anything, right? If you do too much, there's a saying, too much of anything is bad for you. So finding that is going to be extremely important.
So as a coach, obviously you deal with a lot of pressure and rivalry and stuff like that. I wanted to ask how you remain professional and level-headed among like the craziest stuff that there is, let's say like arguments between coaches or players and stuff like that. Yeah,
so we had a strength of schedule this year of a 20 rating, which is out of a 25. So I mean we actually had the third hardest strength of schedule in the state of Florida. And, we were put in those positions a lot. And so one thing I can tell you is the more times you get put in those positions, the more times you know how to handle them. So I think experience big time came into play. Midway through the season, we had already played about 6 to 7 huge games. So when we started to hit those games later on in the season, everybody kind of learned from the mistakes that they made earlier in the year, whether it was getting too emotional. We preach all the time, don't let emotions take control over you while you play. We play such a fast-paced game that if you miss a shot, if you miss a defensive assignment, if you turn over the ball, if you let that affect you for even 45 seconds in our game, that might be 6 possessions. So, understanding that and being okay making mistakes and just being able to be comfortable in your own skin was huge for our guys. Something that I preach to them all the time was, guys, none of us have ever been here before. So we're going to make mistakes. We're going to do things that are unorthodox compared to what people are used to doing. So I think understanding that and going in with that mentality helped out a lot. We were definitely in some hostile environments this year. We played up at Winter Haven, at at Oak Ridge High School up in Orlando. And Orlando and South Florida is a huge rivalry. Doesn't matter what school. And we played up there. There's about 3,500 people in the gym. And I think we had about 6 with Matter Lake shirts on. Everybody else was Oak Ridge. It was by far the biggest environment I've ever coached in, played in, been in a gym. Every time we had the ball, it was crickets, and every time they had the ball, it was super loud, cheering for every basket they scored. And when we made a shot, I think I only heard my kids' voices on the bench. So just being able to be prepared in those environments and going through them day by day and talking to each other at halftime, going over the film and stuff like that, really try to prepare us going forward. And just, I think experience is going to be the best way to answer that question. You got to be in the environment. You got to be in those trenches to then understand how to live in them going forward. You know what I mean? The only way you're going to sink or swim. You get thrown out of the boat, you better know how to swim. If not, you're fighting for your life and you're going to learn how to swim. Same thing, man. You go into these big time environments. If you fall under pressure, you're going to fall under pressure. But if you can fight through it and you give everything you got, you're going to learn how to, survive in that environment. So the next time you go in it, you'll be prepared.
So having success as a player is obviously like really rewarding. But how does that compare to having success as a coach?
Completely different. Completely different. A player success kind of has to do with your individual self. And that's something, I'm wearing the bracelet right now. We have We Over Me and family on this bracelet. We put it on our state championship ring. Player success is awesome. It's awesome. I think growing up as a kid, you always, when you're 6-7 years old, you're out there shooting baskets by yourself. It's not like, and everybody does it 3, 2, 1. You're shooting at night on a hoop in the middle of the street. There's no teammates. So, that's something that you always grow up dreaming about, and it's kind of always about yourself. And, there's nothing wrong with that. Obviously you want to have individual success, and, if you make it to the NBA, you made it. Your whole team didn't make it. That doesn't happen. But it's completely different. As a player, I didn't have the most success, so that's a little hard for me to answer that question. But I've been around a lot of NBA guys, and I ask them questions. I'm not afraid to ask those guys questions because I was always taught, if you want to be a millionaire, surround yourself around millionaires. You want to go to the NBA, gotta know NBA guys. They're gonna teach you how to get there and how they got there and kind of go through their mistakes. But individual success is gonna be obviously rewarding for you. You know what I mean? That's going to be something that you deal with your inner self, and that's going to be rewarding. As a coach, there's no feeling like it. I'm responsible for 12 kids. And when you win a state championship and you see all 12 of those kids, and then you times that by 2 with their 24 parents, then you times that by 3 with their grandparents and stuff like that, and you look up into the crowd and there's 250 people that are all sharing your success, and it's not my success, it's our success. That feeling is insane. I almost think it's, obviously I'm gonna be a little bit biased. I think it's more enjoyable. I've always been a selfless person. So I think a coach's success when a team wins is it's awesome. And you get to share those memories with those kids forever. Where, individual success is a little bit more you. Which is awesome too. You need that. You know what I mean? You definitely need that. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it didn't feel good as a head coach to win a state championship. But I was so much more excited for everybody else that was involved. The school alone, for how much they did to me, they gave me my shot, right? So, to be able to repay them back with a state championship ring was huge in the first year. It was something that the school hasn't done in any sport. So, it was awesome to do that.
That's phenomenal. We got time for one more question from Professor Perez.
Overall, the game of basketball, you can see the growth that's taking place, especially down here in South Florida with the big runs by the teams associated to the NCAA. What do you think that means for you? Do you think from a high school perspective, this is going to get you more athletes to put their mentality towards hooping for the first time? I think we saw a little bit of that in the 2010s, 12s, 14s with the Miami Heat run. This college run, 3 teams within 50 miles of one another had deep runs. Do you think that's something that it will be used in advantage for people like you, or are you just kind of like a spectator to it and think it's just great point blank?
No, I know it's big. And the reason why I say that is because it's gonna be backed up by, just look at the high schools that won this year. Belen, not really known for a basketball school, won a state championship. Revere Prep, not really known for being a basketball school, won a state championship. Columbus, being known for their football and baseball programs, are now back-to-back state championships, state champions in basketball. Dwyer, who was always known as a football school, is now a state championship in basketball. Matter Lakes, probably known for baseball and wrestling their last couple of years, now just won a state championship in basketball. So just in high school alone, these athletes are now looking at these colleges, like you said, the Miami Heat, and they are starting to trend towards basketball. And I think we have the best athletes down here in South Florida, whether it's for track, football, anything. We produce high major athletes. And so if we can start to get them a little bit more basketball related, which it is happening more than ever, that's going to be big time for myself as a basketball coach, but just the basketball community in South Florida is growing day by day. And I think this year was probably the biggest jump that it's going to have. And I think that's going to propel it huge. I think you'll start seeing more dual sport athletes. And I think you'll start seeing kids that play basketball take it a little bit more serious, seeing that, like, okay, hold on, I could really get my scholarships and everything paid for, and I don't have to go too far. FAU just had their best program success in history. Nova finally got over the hump and got their D2 national championship. Coach L, is going to be there for a little while longer, and he's proven his mark down here. And I just think that that's going to propel high school sports, college sports, and just athletes in general, from all ages to really start being just selfless in these things and being big time when it comes to basketball. So I really do think it's going to start trending that way.
Great question, guys. And as we wrap up, anything you got for me, any questions you want to ask, we kind of empower you to throw any curveballs our way. So one thing that I'll tell you that I learned a lot about coaching in my first year is basketball is important. You got to know how to scheme. You got to know philosophy. You got to know everything. The biggest thing I learned this year is how to manage people and how to manage a group of people to all be on the same task, and having good people skills and having good communication skills with people. So that's something that, I've talked to Lewis about, and, I talk to a lot of people. Most times when people ask me, do you have anything for me? I don't even really ask them basketball, because basketball is such a minute percentage of that game. There's only 32 minutes being played in a high school game. That's true. So what do you do the other thousands of hours that you're in the gym and practicing and off the court and on the court and dealing with grades and dealing with people? Kids have family struggles. That's actually probably the most important part, and how you handle that is going to be how your kids relate to you on the court. So that would be my question to you, is how you just told me you just had a TV interview the other day. You do this podcast all the time. So being able to communicate with people nonstop and always being on point and being able to relate to so many different people with so many different backgrounds, I think is super impressive. So that's something that I would ask, if there's a philosophy, or if there's a way you go about things dealing with, well, this person's Latin American, this person's American, this person's Italian, this person's this, and being able to honestly just put them all into one umbrella and being able to treat them all the same and to be able to communicate with them on whatever level. And I'm a basketball coach. You guys have interviewed people that do football, people that are in television, people that are in Los Angeles movies, all those different types of things. Man, so there is always one thing, at least one thing, with every single human being on this earth that we can relate with to. Maybe it's just food. Maybe we just talk about food. But that in itself opens up an entire world. And that's something that I've realized. I wish I would have known that at a younger age, right? But now as an adult, I realize that almost every single human being on this planet, we have at least one thing in common. It doesn't have to be we agree with politics or we agree with the same team that we love or the same, but maybe it's the same food. Maybe we share we like the same wine, the same coffee. But just that conversation opens up an entire different world. And sometimes we live in a world where everybody's guarded, right? So you only see people's outside, but once you break through that and you're able to listen, you got to be a great listener, right? And as a coach. But there are times where I'm in meetings with people and I just sit there and I listen. Customarily, mayors do all the talking, right? So we just talk and talk and talk. But my style is more, I love sitting down with folks, finding that one thing, realizing that one thing. If it's, oye, mismo café que tomamos, the same cup, and then that in itself opens up for them to open up to me and just share with me that I could walk in their shoes, see the world through their eyes, and right there you created a lifelong bond. So, for example, I own a restaurant. I've become friends with people that are not my same political affiliation, we have nothing in not the same hobbies, but breaking bread, you realize, man, there is something in common.
Yeah. They love that Mayor skillet.
No, 100%. Yeah.
That's what I get.
For sure. But there's always, and that's, as a leader, as a coach, you end up, and one cool thing that you mentioned, when you take the time to go sit down with families, that's when you realize, like, man, we're kind of all the same. We have the same dreams and aspirations. Maybe we take different roads.
Of course.
But that's so powerful that you do that at your age, because I think we need more of that. And to me, it's helped me be a leader today, where you listen and then you find those bridges where you can build it with folks that you never thought you'd be able to be friends with them.
Yeah, of course.
And so, that's helped me, and we do it on the show. We've had folks. I think we had Ruben Rabasa, and one thing that Lewis does that's really cool. Once in a while, he invites the guests to go have lunch right here in the and you sit down with them and just having a slice of pizza. I mean, people open up and are like, man, this is me, you know, and it's real cool. But always find that one thing that can connect you with somebody else. So, great question, man. And I'll be honest with you, you've shown that the maturity of like a 50-year-old, man, right? At 25 years old. I'm being real with you, because I think winning a state championship, not being one of those coaches that just shows up and screams and curses, and adding that intellect, right, injecting that into the process is so awesome. So how do you share some words, in closing, some words of inspiration, motivation to the next Coach Dylan, man, that wants to follow in your footsteps, that sees you, that is inspired, that says, man, at 25 years old, I can lead a team to a state championship. I can do this, and I think that's an incredible story. So how do you share those words that you wish you would have heard back then with that future Coach Dylan?
I was able to be around a lot of successful people when I was younger, so I was spoiled. And something that I would tell coaches that want to be the next, because I don't even like using my name. I think I was extremely blessed and extremely lucky to be in this spot. The one thing I will tell you is you don't know everything. So no matter how much you think you know, you don't. And that was something that I had to, because we started off the season very, very good. I believe we were 21-2 at one point. That might start to creep in your mind. Like, this is not as what people say it is. This is a little bit easier than what I thought. Then you start getting into the playoffs and you're playing teams and you're down 4 at half. And, Lewis will tell you, we went undefeated at home. There was only one game all year in which was regional final. We were down at halftime in our own gym. One game. So you might creep into those thoughts of, I know it, like, I'm good. I know everything. I'm prepared, boom, boom, boom. And then you get into this moment where you're down 4 at halftime in the regional final, and you're like, well, how much do I really know? Because now all the eyes are on me. And now this is the one that matters, and we're down. So one thing that I would tell the next young coach to be very successful is listen to other people. You know what I mean? And being able to take 5 different things from 5 different people and then combine that with what you believe in. I'm not saying copy this guy, copy this guy, copy this guy, copy this guy. But there's going to be something that you can learn from him, and apply that to what you believe in. My mom always taught me, you can learn something from the guy that lives under the bridge. If you talk to him long enough, he'll teach you something that you do not know. So you're never that person that knows everything. You're never going to be that coach that knows it all, because there's someone always going to be better than you. There's millions of people that are better than me. So I always have to continue to learn and continue to work hard and continue to study the game and the way it's trending and how kids are reacting to certain things. And you made a good point. Like, my coaching philosophy when I stand on that sideline, I'm energetic, I'm emotional, but if you don't stand behind my bench, you might not hear me. And that's because we do so much preparation and practice that my kids know what they need to do. So there's no reason for me to add added pressure onto them. And it's the same thing as a coach. You know, something that I learned very early on in our season, don't add more pressure that's already on you. You know what I mean? If you're going to lose a game, you lose a game. If you're going to lose multiple games, you're going to lose multiple games. State championship's awesome, but just continue to get better every single day, and those things will come. And obviously, you know, I came a little bit quicker in our program, but that's not always the case, and that's okay if that's not the case. You know what I mean? We can, you know, go through a whole season and have our ups and downs, but if that's going to prepare us for the next year and have a great summer, then it was worth it. You know what I mean? So understanding that you're always learning, continue to learn, continue to work hard, continue to study, do all those things, because it goes back to, again, the original quote that I said. If you prepare, fair you to prepare is preparing to fail. So just keep preparing in every little thing, whether it's a practice, a meaningless game, a meaningful game, a state championship, a district game, the first game of your season, a middle of the game season. Treat it like it's a state championship. And if you continue to do those things, that becomes a habit. So now when you're in that moment, it really is just another game.
You got that right. And there you have it. State champion coach Dylan Estock. The sky's the limit for this young man, only 25. So tune in next Wednesday on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter.
Thank you. Appreciate you.